Hey there YouTube, Wrestling Optimus here, back with another action figure review. It's the start of the wrestling week, which means it's time for Monday Night Raw. This is the last show before the draft, so WWE can't exactly start new storylines, yet they need to start building towards Hell in a Cell. Classic WWE, booking themselves into a corner. Needless to say, I'm not expecting much tonight, but I'm a creature of habit, so let's see what they do. As always, if you're new here, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more pro wrestling and action figure content. Now, we're headed into the Thunderdome! So for a review and some fantasy booking, let's take it over to the action figures. Raw opens with a promo by Randy Orton, who is sitting in the room where he attacked the Legends last week. He reminisces about Clash of Champions. He remembers getting chokeslammed by The Big Show, getting ambushed by Christian, getting super kicked by Shawn Michaels, and of course, getting driven out in an ambulance by Ric Flair. He felt nothing but pain, yet 24 hours later, all those men were celebrating together on Raw. They laughed, toasted, even played poker. It made Orton sick. Well, for every action, there is an equal but opposite reaction, and what he did last week was his reaction. He goes into excruciating detail about it. Then, he turns his attention to Drew and says this feud isn't over until he says it's over. McIntyre can cement his legacy if he can survive one more title defense against the Viper. Inside Hell in a Cell. Drew bursts in and says he doesn't need to turn off the lights to beat the hell out of Randy. They fight until officials step in and separate them. I think we all saw this coming, but as I always say, predictability is fine as long as it tells the right story. WWE are finally using Hell in a Cell correctly as the definitive, brutal ending for long-standing, bitter feuds. That's what it was created for. They're doing it with Roman and Jay over on SmackDown too, and I for one support it. Lana and Natalya join Zelina Vega to take on Asuka and the new team of Mandy Rose and Dana Brooke. The faces control Natty in the early going until Zelina attacks Asuka on the apron. The heels isolate Mandy until she's able to get the hot tag to Asuka, who cleans house. Lana avoids the hip attack, but doesn't see the blind tag, allowing Mandy to hit her with a running knee strike and pick up the win. Going into the night, one of the rumors was that women's tag team champions Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler would make their return. Sure enough, they come down and go straight for Lana and Natalya. Natty tries to fight them off, but gets caught by Jax. Lana goes to save her partner and ends up taking a Samoan drop through the announce table for the third time in 4 weeks. I think this all but confirms that Lana is still in the doghouse with WWE over her social media exploits, including that energy drink sponsorship, and it probably doesn't help that she's married to Miro. Vince is so petty. We find R-Truth discussing his mock WWE draft with Lil Jimmy. Behind him, a suspicious-looking janitor raises a mop to strike just as a referee appears. Truth ducks out of the way, causing the janitor to hit the referee instead, and runs off shouting, "You won't get me, Randy Orton!" Unfortunately, he trips over the mop bucket, and the janitor, who of course is Drew Gulak, rolls him up to capture the 24/7 title. Before darting off, he sets up the wet floor sign and says, "See you next fall." Apollo, Ricochet, and Mustafa Ali are hanging out when MVP comes over to give some unsolicited advice about the draft. You never know what's going to happen in those, so although they've all turned down invitations before, MVP extends one final opportunity to change their minds. However, they only have until the end of the night. As Apollo and Ali walk away seemingly unimpressed, Ricochet lingers and contemplates his options. Despite their issues, Murphy teams up with Seth Rollins to take on the team of Dominic Mysterio and Humberto Carrillo. Beforehand, a video package recaps all the drama from last week. Seth motions for a microphone, but Murphy refuses. Instead, he needs to get something off his chest. For months, he's been the ideal disciple. He did everything he was asked and more. But after last week, if Seth wants him to stay, he needs to apologize. Not just to Murphy, but to Aaliyah. Rollins smacks the mic out of his hand. He screams, "I saved you. I'm the Messiah, you're the disciple. That's how this relationship works." He claims to have found even more DMs where Aaliyah complains about her family always favoring Dominic. He could have released those, but didn't. Honestly, this just sounds like teenage angst. Plus, Murphy shouldn't be messing with a 19-year-old anyway. So I'm with Seth on this one. I also think Ray is right. She is objectively young and naive to the business. Why is this so controversial? Their heated exchange is interrupted by their opponents. There's a brawl before the match. When the bell does ring, Seth starts out and loudly scolds Murphy every time he tries to tag in. This distracts Rollins, so Carrillo takes advantage. Even when he's clearly helping, like when he throws Dominic into the crowd, Murphy is chastised. Yet in the end, he's the one who catches Humberto with a knee off the top rope and wins the match. Afterwards, he storms out by himself. Adam Pearce is confronted by Braun Strowman, who immediately dispels one of the other rumors about tonight, that Raw Underground is coming back. Since it's not, Braun demands a match. That's not possible because he's a SmackDown guy, at least until the draft, but Pearce says he can give Braun an unsanctioned exhibition match, which seems to appease the monster. Having overheard this, Keith Lee appears and simply says, "Sign me up." Rollins finds Murphy and says it's actually him who deserves the apology. If he doesn't get it by 10 p.m., Murphy will no longer be his disciple. It's time for the KO show. Kevin says tonight's episode will feel different because he feels different. This must be what people mean when they say the Fiend changes you. KO still feels the anger, agony, and dread of his first experience. But tonight isn't for chatting nicely with his guest, so he tosses out the fancy chairs. Owens admits he doesn't understand these dark, tortured souls like Aleister Black and the Fiend. Who's going to attack him next? The Brood? The Ministry of Darkness? Frustrated, he demands Bray join him in the ring. Firefly Funhouse Bray appears on the Tron and claims that Kevin is his new friend. Friends are fun because you can have sleepovers, play ball, or they can even help you bury a body. In fact, Bray wrote a terrible song about friends that he sings. Strangely, it includes Ramblin' Rabbit getting eaten once again by Mercy the Buzzard. KO stops him and calls the Funhouse a demented Mr. Rogers reboot. He says he's not Bray's friend. They could have been friends, but the Fiend attacked him on SmackDown. Kevin isn't brainwashed like Alexa Bliss, and he doesn't want to wait for Friday to beat the hell out of Bray. Wyatt's tone changes as he says that's not very nice. He calls KO a bully and tells him that he has no idea what he's gotten himself into. On Friday, he'll find out. He snaps back to normal and says, "Consider this a warning from a friend," then waves goodbye. Owens says if Bray won't come to him, he'll go to Bray. On his way up the ramp, though, he's attacked by Aleister Black, who takes him out with a black mass. Charlie Caruso gets an answer to Randy Orton's challenge from Drew McIntyre. He says the answer is yes, and of course follows with, "I'm sending you straight to hell." Braun Strowman's exhibition match against Keith Lee is next. They no-sell each other's offense for a bit before moving to the outside, where the referee quickly counts them both out. What a terrible finish and another DQ that does nothing for Keith. He's put through the barricades by Strowman after the match. Officials step in, but he hops right back up and dives onto Braun. They battle up the ramp, destroying an LED board and crashing off the stage. This showed a little bit of promise, but ended up doing nothing for either man. The theme of the night seems to be hoping in vain that the draft will fix all of these problems. We get another Bianca Belair video package, this time showing off her brains in trivia against her friends. Meh, it was alright. More 24/7 shenanigans as we find Drew Gulak hiding behind a dumpster. He brags about always being alert as R-Truth predictably pops up from said dumpster with a referee. Gulak tries to run away but bumps into a trash can. Out tumbles Akira Tozawa. All three men wind up in the dumpster together out of camera view. We hear fighting, then the ref counts a pinfall on the side of the dumpster and declares R-Truth the new champion. He runs off with his baby. That was a fittingly wacky ending for a wacky 24/7 segment. Oh my gosh, the Hurt Business is taking on Apollo Crews and Ricochet again. Beforehand, MVP cuts a promo justifying their loss last week due to interference by Retribution, who he puts on notice, whatever that means. This brings out the three amigos. Ali and Apollo give cookie-cutter promos, then Ricochet pretends like he's interested in joining the Hurt Business, but it's all a fake-out. So MVP tells his boys to put a special emphasis on Ricochet when dealing out this beating. Sure enough, Bobby and Shelton systematically demolish Ricochet, who somehow has enough energy to jaw Jack with MVP on the outside. Eventually, he gets the hot tag to Cruz, who runs wild. Later, Apollo leaps over Bobby's spear, but gets caught with a chokeslam. Lashley applies the Hurt Lock, and the Hurt Business stand tall. Murphy happens upon Aaliyah Mysterio. Again, he says he's sorry. She asks if he's actually going to apologize to Seth. He says he doesn't know yet. Speak of the devil, Seth and Murphy come to the ring for a decision. Murphy doesn't say anything. Seth grabs him by the beard and screams in his face for an apology. That's the final straw, and Murphy attacks. Rollins finds a kendo stick, but Murphy steals it and beats him down. Seth says he's sorry, but Murphy wants it for Aaliyah. He continues beating Seth until he finally apologizes for getting her involved. He begs for mercy, then attacks once Murphy's guard is down. Aaliyah rushes over and covers him. Her family follows, looking on in shock. Dominic reminds his sister of everything that Seth and Murphy have done to them. Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax take on the Riot Squad in a match that was supposed to happen at Clash of Champions. The defending champs dominate but still have issues, making antagonizing or reluctant tags with each other. Baszler does her signature arm stomp and various submissions to Ruby's historically bad shoulder. Liv comes in on the hot tag and runs wild until she's stopped by Jax. After a series of quick tags, the Riot Squad take out Nia, but Ruby gets caught in the Karafuda clutch, and the champions retain. MVP takes on Mustafa Ali, who's so confident he invited Lashley and Benjamin to the ring as well. However, MVP dominates the match before the rest of the Hurt Business join him in the ring, and they corner Ali. Suddenly, the lights go out, and Retribution appears. They surround the ring as the Hurt Business forms a defensive circle. Initially, Mustafa joins them, but then rolls out of the ring and confronts Mace and T-Bar, only to slowly turn around with a smirk on his face. Retribution attacks the Hurt Business and leaves them laid out. They pose with Mustafa Ali in the ring, and I guess he's their leader. That's certainly an interesting twist, and might explain why he was lost in their locker room last week. This will all depend on how they book it moving forward, but hey, at least Ali's getting a push. Maybe they can bring in the SmackDown hacker angle. That would explain how Retribution controlled the lights. Or lean into the story of Mustafa's outgrowing 205 Live, only to be replaced by Kofi Kingston, who went on to win the WWE Championship at WrestleMania. That should have been his opportunity, but it was taken away from him. All I know is that for everyone's sake, I hope he can save this group. It's time for the six-man main event. Randy Orton joins Dolph Ziggler and Robert Roode to take on the championship team of Drew McIntyre with the Street Profits. Montez Ford is so freaking good. I couldn't take my eyes off him. He hits a dive and a standing moonsault like they're nothing. Meanwhile, commentary puts over that Randy is avoiding getting involved in the match. When he does tag in, he goes to hit an RKO on Angelo Dawkins, but eats an anointment instead. Montez Ford follows that up with a frog splash, but it's broken up by Ziggler and Roode. Dolph hits Ford with a Famouser, then gets hit with a Claymore kick. So does Roode, but this distracts Drew long enough to allow Orton to hit the RKO and steal a victory to close out the show. I'm not really sure what to think about this episode. We're all sick and tired of Apollo and Friends versus the Hurt Business, yet that felt like it was 75% of the show. I was really hoping for something good from Bray Wyatt on the KO show, but that was a dud. We got mostly short TV matches, so the wrestling wasn't great either. Probably the only thing I actually enjoyed were the 24/7 title segments, and that's just because I'm weird and everything R-Truth touches is comedy gold. I understand the draft severely hampered their ability to craft any storylines in this episode. Okay, so treat it like a house show. Throw a bunch of random crap at the audience and see if anything gets over. Best case scenario, draft those people to the same show and you have a ready-made story. Worst case scenario, you take a few lumps on social media and then pretend like it never happened. Kinda like what WWE does all the time already. I'm not sure what I expect from Raw at this point. It's by far the worst wrestling show on TV, but who knows, maybe a hard reset after the draft can finally right this ship. Alright, that'll do it for Monday Night Raw. Thanks so much for watching. Let me know what you thought in the comments down below. I've decided to stop doing AEW Dark reactions, so I'll be back on Thursday with my action figure review of Dynamite. As always, if you found me and enjoy my content, make sure to do all that normal YouTube stuff. Smash the like button, share with any wrestling or action figure fans you may know, subscribe to the channel, and spread the word. You can also talk to me over on Twitter, at PSUOptimus, or see all my best figure photography on Instagram at WrestlingOptimus. If you haven't seen the video for my recent fig hunt at a local flea market, you can check that out right here. But until next time, I've been Wrestling Optimus, and I'll catch you later.